blessing after salvation. What about her first made you think that she was the one?
Appropriate answer or the
Oh, yeah, give me the good answer. We want the best answer.
The clean version.
the
Yeah,
clean
clean
version?
version.
No, honestly, you know, it's like an onion, and it's been layers, and down through the years, we've been blessed to continue to peel back layers. So initially, I was attracted to the way that she looked, right? You know, and but also I met my wife in church. I met her speaking, we're teaching the class, and I was enthralled. I saw her passion. I saw her love for God. I saw her love for people, and uh, married with, right. I also liked the way she looked, so I was like, now look, Lord,
You said that twice.
you said no good thing would you withhold from your righteous. I ain't right necessarily, but I'm right about this one, Lord. Hook it up, and that was the beginning of us going out. I asked her to if she'd hang out with me for a little bit, and we talked and chopped it up all night, right? Yeah,
Yep.
we talked all night. We got put out of the restaurant, went to the pier, left the pier, walked the beach, and I mean just talking all night, you know, and enjoyed the conversation. And I knew, right? I knew from having the conversation with her, and we got in the car. We drove from Connecticut to Cleveland, right? And no music.
Yep.
No music, just conversation. So
conversation.
I knew at that point that's somebody that you can build a life with.
And what was it about him for you?
Okay, first and foremost, I have to say that before I knew that it was him, there were some things that I knew about myself. I knew that I loved myself. I knew what I wanted. I know who I wanted. And it was appropriate the night that we went on our first date, just having a conversation with him and our alignment. He liked the same things that I liked. First of all, God was head of our lives, and so our spiritual walk, our journey, aligned us. And so I just knew that, you know, from that conversation, my God, who's this man? I think he was sent for me. I was ready for him. He was ready for me.
And let's talk a little bit about foundation building. What's the most important conversation you think a couple should have before they get married? We'll start with you.
I think the most important conversation they should have is why are we getting married? Um, why are we getting married? What is it about marriage that you think that you would want to have with this? What's the life that you would want to have with this other person? We both came from homes where our parents were from divorced parents. And so the number one thing for us is divorce is not an option. And we wanted to make sure that getting into this marriage, first of all, we put God first in our marriage. And then from there, we work hard at making sure we stay together. And so that's mainly one of those. What do you have to say?
So no, everything that my wife said, my beautiful wife said. In addition, I would add in, you know, Dr. Marvin McMichael has a book called Before We Say I Do. And it's a must read for anybody that's thinking about getting married. That's a nice bag, sis. Well, the first thing he says is you have to have a commonality with regard to your faith, right? Faith is at the helm of it. Faith is the thing that you anchor to. And game, brothers, sisters, if this person can't have fidelity to God, meaning if they can't put God who made them first, you ain't got a shot. You ain't got a shot. If they can't stick to it with God, they're not going to stick to it with you. And you need faith, and you need to be kind of anchored in faith, because when it gets rocky, that's where we turn, right? That's where we turn. So you need faith, and then you need to be friends. You need to be friends. And you ought to approach marriage with the decision to love each other and respect each other, right? Particularly, brothers, love your wives like Christ loved the church. Wives, respect your husbands. That's what the Bible says. There's another book called Love and Respect, must read. And then finally, the commitment to tell the truth to each other. McMichael would call that fidelity, but there's another book you should pick up called Lies at the Altar. And the reason why most marriages fall apart is not because something happens in the marriage, but before the marriage, we got together and lied at the altar. You lied and said you were going to do something that you knew you had no intent in doing. The truth of marriage is that if you do it right, it looks bad when it ends. And so before you run to the altar with that person, ask yourself at the end, when they're not looking like how they look, when they may not even be in their right mind, if they don't have their body in the same way, do you still love this person? If their finances go away, do you still like this person? Do you still love this person? Do you want to do life with them? Come what may, come what may.
So, Pastor, tell us, what were some of the things, one of the biggest surprise that you guys can say you guys wasn't prepared for in your first years of marriage?
Your answer is going to be better than mine. Somebody said, tell the truth.
Wow. I think one of the things that we weren't prepared for, I don't know.
You don't know? All right, so it's your answer, because, you know.
Woo. I think when we first got married, obviously Napoleon was already a pastor of a church, and getting into the marriage as a pastor's wife is different than attending a church as just a member. And so there were initially in the marriage as a pastor's wife, yes, you try to love the church, and that was a difficult time for us. And so I think just adjusting to the first lady life, adjusting to the church life, for me was one of the most difficult things.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of things. For me, all of whatever skeletons in the closet, they get up and do the Thriller dance, right?
Right.
So they're and navigating that. Secondly, actually living together as opposed to hanging out together. There is, when you just hanging out, you can get up, you can go home. When you live together, that is home. Mm-hmm. And so navigating, how do we problem solve? How do we resolve conflict in a way that's constructive? And then there's just the practical matters of living together. And our first place was a condo. We had one restroom. And you love a person, but man, do you go in the bathroom after them love a person, right? And those are real things that happen in marriage that you may not think about. You know what I mean? Everybody has their quirks. I might come home really tired, and where I am is where my clothes lay. And then navigating around that, So those are things that kind of caught us by surprise a little bit. But I mean, you navigate those. You don't wait until you get married to determine how you're going to navigate those things. You begin having the conversations on the front end. That is the purpose of dating. You don't date to get married. You date to figure out if this is the person you're going to do life with and the terms of doing life together. That's what this dating is all about.
With me and you had some conversations, and you talked about the tragedy of losing children in the relationship in your earlier years. You had a couple of children that you guys lost. I want you to talk a little bit about that and going through that. Let's start with you, Lady Harris, and going through that and navigating that with your mate.
Obviously, that was a quite difficult time for us, losing the first child. I just realized this is one of the reasons why I married the man that I married. The support that he gave me through the loss, we grieved together, and we talk about what it felt like losing a child, and then the second child we lost. It was inevitable that he is my husband, and we also worked through that as well, seeking counseling and continuously talking and loving on each other. Being together helped us to get through that time, and sharing how we felt about losing both children helped us to get through those challenging times as well.
Pastor.
Absolutely. It was community care and her compassion internally. And then we had a great community outside of our house. I found other brothers to link with who had experienced that. And we kind of pulled strength so that I could try to be there to support my wife, right? You know, and there for her. In fact, I thank you, Brother Dollar. I wrote about that and a piece that has been in the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the Calling Post, the Euclid Observer, and the 100 Black Men issue as well. And we're actually doing something tomorrow to commemorate our loss in collaboration with Village of Healing. I'm hosting Stogies and Stories, and it's particularly for men who have had either difficult childbirths or lost or experienced infant mortality out at the Havana Cigar Lounge out in Twinsburg. It's a black-owned place, black-owned vendors, food, and we're supporting Village of Healing, a black-owned clinic. So if that's you, that's your story, or you just feel it, come through and support and hang out. If nothing else, come eat some food and leave some money. Sisters can come too. Yeah.
So let's talk about one of the biggest things that most couples have struggling with getting into relationships is finance, and being able to deal with financing of whether we do a joint account, separate accounts, how we pay bills, all of that kind of stuff. How do you think what's your suggestion in navigating that conversation and getting through that from your perspective?
So I'm actually in finance. It's been my career for the past 25 years. So coming
I thought you was 22.
So coming into the marriage, obviously that was one of my strengths. I worked in the financial industry, and so I knew about money, or know about money. I'm in wealth management now, and so we had a conversation about, well, who's gonna take care of the finances? And we agreed that because that was my job, then that should be also the job at home. So as far as whenever the paycheck comes in, it goes into one bank account. We have a joint account. We don't have separate accounts. We share, okay, what do you have coming up? This is what I have. Okay, this is what we're using finances for. We're going to pay the bills, and we're going to save. And so we align on what, our financial future should look like. And so we talk about that and save towards that. But I basically do all the finances in my house, because that's my work and that's my line of business. And so his thing was, I don't know anything much about finances, so I'll let you handle it and let you take care of it. And so that's how we decided on that.
My checks don't bounce no more.
I know that's right.
No, I think a lot of times, well, first off, let me say this. There's no like magic mix to this, right? Our way is our way, and your way will be your way. You just have to find the way that works for you. You might need separate accounts, right? We don't have separate. Well, I got a separate. I have an account that I put money in to do stuff for her. I know because I'm not finna ask her what I can do for her.
All right.
Right? Because she's gonna say, I don't need this, I don't want that, which only makes me want to do even more, right? So I take extra money that I get that comes in that I don't expect. I put it aside, and then if I want to get her a bag or I want to get her something nice or whatever the case may be, it doesn't hurt the house because we never expected it coming anyway. And but that's our way. You got to find your way, right?
That's kind of how we do it. Our stuff, we have a general budget of what it costs to live. And as the kids were younger, it was really high. As they got older, it went down. And to your point, we had separate accounts. I don't know how many accounts my wife got right now. I'm not gonna even lie. I don't have no idea how many accounts she had. I only have one. But it was that, because just as a man, at a certain point in time, And as even a woman, as individuals, you just don't want to have to explain every time you want to go buy you something, or even every time you want to go buy him something.
That's right.
So you want to have something that you can have of your own and still keep that togetherness as a couple. So I think that's very important. And as you grow, I think that's something that, has there ever been a moment where finances challenged the relationship and how you guys work through that? It doesn't seem like she's making all the decisions, so it seems like it's really no big deal.
I think also too, when we talked about purchasing a home together, one of the things we also, kind of talked about was, well, what's your credit score?
No. There it is, right.
Is your credit score going to get us this house, or are we going to need to do it together or separately? Those are kind of some of those things that initially going into the marriage that you need to talk about. Ask your mate or your fiance, what's your credit score looking like? Because
What's your credit score?
yeah,
What's your idea of money?
yeah,
Right? What do you think money is for? What do you make? What do you keep? What do you spend? What do you owe?
what do you have saved?
And how do you invest?
Yeah.
How do you feel about giving to church? How do you feel about giving to causes?
Yes.
These are all things that you had better be talking about now, before you get hitched. And in addition to money and financial health, you ought to have some conversations about physical health.
Okay,
Yeah.
What runs in your family,
okay.
right? You know what I mean? How are you taking care of yourself? What's up with your mom? What's up with your dad? What's up with your uncles, your aunts? Right? Because those are things that are also going to impact your finances and your quality of life.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about just couples in general and navigating the times where things are tough. You come home, you got a tough day. You come home, you're having a rough day. And in that first relationship or first years of marriage and trying to understand how do you deal with that person? Because like you say, when you were dating, you can kind of be like, well, I'll call you back.
Yeah.
Right? And you'll let them calm down, or you'll kind of do something, kind of come back at them later. How is the best way you feel you should negotiate or navigate that in a relationship?
To throw me under the bus, no. These are things, again, that have to be part of the conversation before you get to the altar, before you say I do. You know, the truth of the matter, you're going to fight, and you got to have some fighting rules, some rules when you fight. We don't have a whole lot of them. We remember that when the fight is over, we are together.
Right.
So you don't want to say something that you're going to regret later on. In addition, we resolved that, you know what, we're going to stick with this and stick through it. So there's no threat of leaving or anything like that. And sometimes by the time we lay the ground rules down, the temperature on the argument comes down, right? Because I got to tell her, look, I love you. I ain't doing life without you. Well, yeah, by the time you don't say that, the fight start cooling down. Because it's like, well, what was I that mad about that we were getting ready to go to 10 with the person that I love that I'm not doing life without?
Right.
Right? So that helps. And then, you know what? You don't have to have your way. And if both people realize that, then there's going to be a conversation of what's best for us.
Right.
What's best for the family, what's best for the kids, what's best for tomorrow. If you're not mature enough to not have to have your way, then marriage is not for you.
Or win every fight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
marriage is not for you. Adulthood is not for you.
What'd you say, lady?
I can count on one hand in the 12 years that we've been married how many times we've really had an argument. Conflicts are inevitable.
Inevitable.
It's inevitable. It's going to happen. But how you navigate those conflicts is what helps to keep you together, what helps to keep the marriage together. One of the things that we've decided in our marriage is if we're having a disagreement, is to sit and talk nicely to each other. You're not raising your voice. I'm not raising my voice. Sit and talk calmly to each other. That also gives us the opportunity to come back to a point with each other, a point of reference to each other where okay, this is in love. This is, we may disagree, but this is in love. And so we always make sure that whatever we do, whatever we say to each other, it's always in love. And again, we want to be together forever. So we have to be able to figure out how to resolve our conflicts and do it in a way that doesn't hurt each other. So.
Let's talk about these kids. As children is
boy.
always the biggest thing in relationships. And now, how many kids do you have now?
2 kids,
Yeah,
2 girls.
Two kids, 2 girls. So navigating, working with the kids. What's their ages?
9 and 11.
9 and 11.
19 and 22.
19 and 22. That's what they feel like. 19 and 22. So let's talk about parenthood and working with the children and trying to get involved. Who's the most involved in the children's life? I imagine
Mama.
Mama, because they are girls. In my case, my wife is all involved in them until they were playing sports.
I think
Then
whether
got
or not they were
involved.
boys or girls, I would still be.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
yes.
And you know what? Before we even dive into that's another conversation
Uh-huh.
that you need to have and be squared away with before you get to the altar. Who will do what in the house? What are the rules? What are the norms? What are the expectations? Who's going to do the housework? How are you going to divide the labor in the house?
Yes.
Who's going to do the kid? How you going to divide the labor of kids in the house? Like these are all things that if you wait until you cross that threshold of the sanctuary or wherever you get married, man, you already late.
Yes.
That's correct.
I think one of the things we also aligned on is how to parent our kids.
Okay.
We both, have the same standards on, parenting, and that helps even with our children today, how we resolve issues with them or how we discipline them. It's basically the same way. And so our kids don't get away with anything. We talk about how we're going to handle a certain situation with our children, whatever situation comes up, how we're going to handle it together. I talk to my kids. Yes, I discipline my kids, but my husband also knows what the kids have done wrong, and so we'll talk to the kids together. Again, because we align on how we're raising and how we're disciplining our kids.
It's gang over here.
Yeah. They're not ganging up on us. We're ganging up
Hanging
on
up
them.
on them.
I like that. I truly believe that. I truly believe that. So, Pastor Harris, as a father, how do you model emotional vulnerabilities for your daughters in a society where men are supposed to be strong?
I try to let them know that it takes strength to be vulnerable, right? It takes more strength to be vulnerable than it is to pretend to be strong. So that's just a life principle. I hope that my children observe and see me be affectionate with my wife. I hope that they see me in the moments when we have intense moments of fellowship, be calm and acquiesce to my wife. And then, we bring our children to church, and church is a place to be emotional and vulnerable. And so they get to see us in the act of worship, and they get to see Dad cry real macho man tears. They get to see Dad announce dependence upon a force and entity that's greater than me. And they get to see us in our interactions together. So I hope they get a chance to see all of those things. And they also, we try to live out our Christianity, which teaches the space of mutual submission and mutuality. So in everyday interactions, they may see Dad take a high road. This person may have said something crazy. Dad's gonna let it slide, right? So they can see that takes a kind of resolve and a kind of strength. And then we maintain family and secret devotion. So we talk about these things too.
Lady Harris, how do you instill confidence and independence in your young daughters?
I just continue to remind them that they, first of all, are beautiful. They matter. They have 2 great parents that love and adore them. we allow space for our kids to come to us and talk to us about anything. We support them in whatever journey or whatever they would like to do. And we just let them know that God is number one also in their lives. And so when you can't sometimes share something with your parents, and of course we make space and room for that for them, you know that you can also talk to God. And so they have a spiritual relationship with God.
Amen.
They're both baptized. They're both Christians.
Amen.
And we didn't make that decision for them. They made that decision on their own. And so that's kind of like the trend in our house, to allow our children to continue with our help, with God's help, to make decisions on their own as well. And so that's part of keeping them,
No, you're good.
Yes.
You're good. Emotional and mental
Yep.
health is
Yep.
often overlooked in relationships, especially one's well-being of their mental health, and dealing with that in a relationship with people. What does the role you believe the church and your partner can help in making sure that that is something that is not overlooked in your relationship?
I think we have to continue talking about mental health, emotional health, to help destigmatize it so that it can be a part of our lives, right? So if somebody, well, maybe now in this COVID world, but if somebody coughs or somebody sneezes, we don't think anything of them covering their mouth. We don't think anything of them getting some Theraflu, right? Because they're taking care of their health, right? So the same is true for our mental health. So I think of mental health like this. Think of, everybody's been to a cookout, right? Everybody's been to a cookout. You throw on your baked beans, your tater salad, hot dog, hamburger, piece of chicken, ribs. And by the time you put all that on that plate, what starts to happen to that plate? It's getting ready to fold. And if that plate collapses, you're going to lose all your good stuff. Well, that's how life is, right? We have a lot on our plates, right? And if we don't find a way to support that plate, we're going to lose some good stuff. And that's mental health. So we have to destigmatize it and encourage it at church, and we have to encourage it in our families and in our friendships as well. And with regard to emotional health, you can't have spirituality and spiritual health and spiritual growth and spiritual maturity without emotional health, emotional maturity, because spirituality, spiritual growth is emotional growth. Spiritual maturity is emotional maturity.
Lady Harris, how do you create a safe space for pastor to depress and recharge?
By being available to him. Being
like
available
how you
to
said
him,
that.
meaning when he calls and he wants to talk, being available to listen. When he comes home and he's had a rough day, being compassionate and even passionate towards him. When he wants to cry, being a shoulder for him to cry on. I want to be the first phone call that he makes whenever he feels like he's having a rough day. And when he comes home from work, I'm always there waiting for him with open arms. We hug and kiss each other before we leave the house every morning and say, I love you. When he comes home, I hug and kiss him. I say, I love you. Glad you're home. And I'm always available to him whenever he needs me to.
And Dr. Harris, how do you assure that Lady Harris is heard and valued during tough times?
I listen. Listen. Pause. And sometimes listening is, not just there and listen and being present in the moment. And then sometimes it calls for more than that. Sometimes it calls for a greater expression, right? To make sure that she knows that I know that she knows that she's heard and listened to, right? So it might mean taking a day off and spending the day with her, especially when things are really bad, right? So just whatever it takes.
We're going to wrap up with this question right here for you guys. Marriage requires growth and maturity. What is the hardest lesson each of you learned about yourself during your 12 years of marriage?
Wow. Before I met Napoleon, was a, I love to travel. I love to spend time with my family and friends. And I like my own space. Well, in marriage, that person's there with you all the time. I don't have my own space half the times.
Right.
There are times when, geez, I would just love to sit in the house and have a quiet moment. But then I have kids running around, and then my husband wants to have conversations. But I've realized, it's okay. There are moments when I can step away or step out of the home if I need to. But being by myself sometimes, that's just been a challenge, I guess, within the marriage as far as, having time to myself.
Pastor?
Biggest challenge, honestly, and still, just coming to the realization that we are always in process, and that we're still developing, still growing, still learning. I'm still trying to be the best version of myself, and in competition with yesterday, and in competition with tomorrow, and trying to give God my best, and give my wife my best, and give my children my best.
Hey, so we're getting ready to get out of here and close. I want to thank Antoinette for allowing us to come here and be a part of this program. But before I leave, I want to let you, Pastor, give some closing remarks, and you, lady, as well, just to tell people before they leave anything that's on your heart about marriage before we go. Pastor, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna start with my beautiful. Well, you want the last word?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna start with my beautiful wife.
Okay.
Before marriage, be honest with yourself, be honest with your partner, and if you get to that end, love each other, put God first in everything that you do.
There it is.
You say ditto. All right, thanks again to Antoinette for allowing us to be a part of her program today. Strategic Moves Podcast. You can catch us on YouTube, as well as we're broadcasting on WOVU 95.9 FM every Tuesday. It's Talk to Me Tuesdays, where you can call in and be a part of the conversation. Other than that, peace. All right, we good.
Come on, come on, come on. Get ready, get ready, get ready.